Open Stax Psychology, Chapter 4, Introduction. Consciousness. Our lives involve regular, dramatic changes in the degree to which we are aware of our surroundings and our internal states. While awake, we feel alert and aware of the many important things going on around us. Our experiences change dramatically while we are in deep sleep and once again when we are dreaming. In this chapter, we'll discuss states of consciousness with a particular emphasis on sleep. The different stages of sleep will be identified and sleep disorders will be described. This chapter will close with discussions of altered states of consciousness produced by psychoactive drugs, hypnosis, and meditation. (4.1) What is consciousness? Consciousness describes our awareness of internal and external stimuli. Awareness of internal stimuli includes feeling pain, hunger, thirst, sleepiness, and being aware of our thoughts and emotions. Awareness of external stimuli includes seeing the light from the sun, feeling the warmth of a room, and hearing the voice of a friend. We experience different states of consciousness and different levels of awareness on a regular basis. We might even describe consciousness as a continuum that ranges from full awareness to deep sleep. Sleep is a state marked by relatively low levels of physical activity and reduced sensory awareness that is distinct from periods of rest that occur during wakefulness. Wakefulness is characterized by high levels of sensory awareness, thoughts, and behavior. In between these extremes are states of consciousness related to daydreaming, intoxication as a result of alcohol or other drug use, meditative states, hypnotic states, and altered states of consciousness following sleep deprivation. We might also experience unconsciousness states of being via drug-induced anesthesia for medical purposes. Often, we are not completely aware of our surroundings, even when we are fully awake. For instance, have you ever daydreamed while driving home from work or school without really thinking about the drive itself? You were capable of engaging in all of the complex tasks involved with operating a motor vehicle, even though you were not aware of doing so. Many of these processes, like much of psychological behavior, are rooted in our biology. Biological rhythms are internal rhythms of biological activity. A woman's menstrual cycle is an example of a biological rhythm, a recurring cyclical pattern of bodily changes. One complete menstrual cycle takes about 28 days, a lunar month, but many biological cycles are much shorter. For example, body temperature fluctuates cyclically over a 24-hour period. Alertness is associated with higher body temperatures and sleepiness with lower body temperatures. This pattern of temperature fluctuates, which repeats every day, is one example of a circadian rhythm. A circadian rhythm is a biological rhythm that takes place over a period of 24 hours. Our sleep-wake cycle, which is linked to our environment's natural light-dark cycle, is perhaps the most obvious example of a circadian rhythm, but we also have daily fluctuations in heart rate, blood pressure, blood sugar, and body temperature. Some circadian rhythms play a role in changes in our state of consciousness. If we have biological rhythms, then is there some sort of biological clock in the brain? The hypothalamus, which lies above the pituitary gland, is a main center of homeostasis. Homeostasis is the tendency to maintain a balanced or optimal level within a biological system. The brain's clock mechanism is located in an area of the hypothalamus known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN. The axon of the light-sensitive neurons in the retina provided information to the SCN based on the amount of light present, allowing the internal clock to be synchronized with the outside world. Problems with circadian rhythms. Generally, and for most people, our circadian cycles are aligned with the outside world. For example, most people sleep during the night and are awake during the day. One important regulator of sleep-wake cycle is the hormone melatonin. The pineal gland and endocrine structure located inside the brain that releases melatonin is thought to be involved in the regulation of various biological rhythms and of the immune system during sleep. Melatonin releases is stimulated by darkness and inhibited by light. There are individual differences with regards to our sleep-wake cycle. For instance, some people would say they are morning people, while others would consider themselves to be night owls. These individual differences in circadian patterns of activity are known as a person's chronotype, and research demonstrates that morning larks and night owls differ with regards to sleep regulation. Sleep regulation refers to the brain's control of switching between sleep and wakefulness, as well as coordinating with cycles with the outside world. Disruption of normal sleep. Whether lark, owl, or somewhere in between, there are situations in which a person's circadian clock gets out of synchrony with the external environment. One way that this happens involves traveling across multiple time zones. When we do this, we often experience jet lag. Jet lag is a collection of symptoms that results from the mismatch between our internal circadian cycles and our environment. And these symptoms include fatigue, sluggishness, irritability, and insomnia. Individuals who do rotating shift work are also likely to experience disruption in circadian cycles. Rotating shift work refers to work schedule that changes from early to late on a daily or weekly basis. For example, a person may work from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Monday, 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Tuesday, and 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Wednesday. In such instances, the individual's cycle changes so frequently that it becomes difficult for a normal circadian rhythm to be maintained. This often results in sleeping problems, and it can lead to signs of depression and anxiety. These kinds of schedules are common for individuals working in healthcare professions and service industries, and they are associated with persistent feelings of exhaustion and agitation that can make someone more prone to making mistakes on the job. Rotating shift work has pervasive effects on the lives and experiences of individuals engaged in that kind of work, which is clearly illustrated in stories and reported in a qualitative study that researched the experience of middle-aged nurses who worked rotating shifts. Several of the nurses interviewed commented that their work schedules affected their relationships with their families. One of the nurses said, "If you've had a partner who does work regular job, 9 to 5 office hours, the ability to spend good time with them when you're not feeling absolutely exhausted, that would be one of the problems that I've encountered." While disruptions in circadian rhythms can have negative consequences, there are things we can do to help us realign our biological clocks with an external environment. Some of these approaches, such as using a bright light as shown in figure 4.4, have been shown to alleviate some of the problems experienced by individuals suffering from jet lag or from the consequences of rotating shift work. Because the biological clock is driven by light, exposure to bright light during working shifts and dark exposure when not working can help combat insomnia and symptoms of anxiety and depression. Insufficient sleep. When people have difficulties getting sleep due to their work or the demands of their day-to-day life, they accumulate a sleep debt. A person with a sleep debt does not get sufficient sleep on a chronic basis. The consequences of sleep debt include a decreased level of alertness and mental efficiency. Interestingly, since the advent of electric light, the amount of sleep that people get has declined. While we certainly welcome the convenience of having the darkness light up, we also suffer the consequences of reduced amounts of sleep, because we are more active during the nighttime hours than our ancestors were. As a result, many of us sleep less than 7 to 8 hours a night and accrue a sleep debt. While there is a tremendous variation in any given individual's sleep needs, the National Sleep Foundation cites research to estimate that newborns require the most sleep, between 12 and 18 hours a night, and that this amount declines to just 7 to 9 by the time we are adults. If you lay down to take a nap and fall asleep very easily, chances are you may have sleep debt. Given that college students are notorious for suffering from significant sleep debt, chances are you and your classmates deal with sleep debt related issues on a regular basis. In 2015, the National Sleep Foundation updated their sleep duration hours to better accommodate individual differences. Table 4.1 shows that new recommendations which describe sleep duration that are recommended may be appropriate and not recommended. Sleep debt and sleep deprivation have significant negative physical, psychological, and psychological consequences. Figure 4.5. As mentioned earlier, lack of sleep can result in decreased mental alertness and cognitive function. In addition, sleep deprivation often results in depression-like symptoms. These effects can occur as a function of accumulated sleep debt or in response to more acute periods of sleep deprivation. It may surprise you to know that sleep deprivation is associated with obesity, increased blood pressure, increased levels of stress hormones, and reduced immune function. A sleep-deprived individual generally will fall asleep more quickly than if she were not sleep-deprived. Some sleep-deprived individuals have difficulty staying awake when they stop moving. That is why individuals suffering from sleep deprivation can also put themselves and others at risk when they put themselves behind the wheel of a car or work with dangerous machinery. Some research suggests that sleep deprivation affects cognitive and motor function as much as, if not more than, alcohol intoxication. The amount of sleep we get varies across the lifespan. When we were very young, we spend up to 16 hours a day sleeping. As we grow older, we sleep less. In fact, meta-analysis, which is a study that combines the results of many related studies conducted within the last decade, indicates that by the time we are 65 years old, we average fewer than 70 hours of sleep per day. As the amount of time we sleep varies over our lifespan, presumably the sleep debt would adjust accordingly.